to another edition of the BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast. Andrew Callista, Mike Bush, and Frank Bodani. A tradition unlike any other here in early April. No Magnolia Lane, no Rays Creek, no final stroll up the 18th to the clubhouse. But man, do we got some great folks here today to talk, and we're hoping DJ Dozier joins us in a little bit to talk Penn State running backs. We got plenty of topics to discuss. The calendar on Penn State football never sleeps. This past weekend, Penn State's pro day. Some guys performed, some guys did not perform. Those who did, some performed very, very well. Your thoughts initially on Penn State's pro day before we get into dissecting who participated and who didn't. Frank, let's start with you. What are your general overall thoughts?
I think, a few of the guys who really this could probably benefit more than anyone, I think they came through. And we're talking like cornerback Jalen Kimber, I think did well. Linebacker Kobe King, who didn't do a whole lot at the combine. I mean, Kimber wasn't even at the NFL combine. Kobe didn't do a whole lot. And some of the other guys, I mean, those two to me really stood out as far, and also KJ Winston, because he is a highly regarded prospect, but the injury in September, I mean, he's been completely off the radar, didn't do anything physically at the combine. So he ran well. The other two guys I mentioned, I think, gave really good performances overall. So, I mean, that's what stood out to me. I mean, it was kind of a letdown that the two biggest stars that have, didn't do anything other than talk to us. So Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren just didn't. So, that took away a little bit of, I think, of the hype.
Yeah, it wasn't very eventful for that reason. I do think that the Kimber 40 time sub 4.4, I think that was pretty worth noteworthy, because he's that's got to raise his stock. Obviously, he's at a position where that is pretty critical. And then I think Winston doing the 4.5, I think that probably helped him a little bit too, because nobody's worried about his ability to play football. They're worried about his health and his, is the athleticism going to be there for a deep back? He could be. I think he has every chance to be the next really good safety from Penn State, and they've churned out a few of those over the years. But it maybe wasn't as eventful as other pro days have been, or maybe as we thought this pro day was going to be. Drew Aller threw the ball around a little bit for Julian Fleming. So, I mean, maybe he got to show off a little bit a year early. But yeah, not a big deal. The guys that are going to be big factors in the draft, of course, are Carter and Warren, and they didn't do anything at the combine, and they didn't do anything at pro day.
Winston, I thought, looked really good, looked strong, looked like he had not been injured, which I think might be the biggest thing, because you combine that with a good 40 and just the way he carried himself. I mean, he looks ready to go. And until somebody like him, to me, does something physically like this, I think there's a lot of doubts, because you don't know how a partial ACL tear, how long that's going to take for you to get back to being a guy who I think should definitely get picked on day 2.
Yep. Concur. I concur.
One of my, I was not at pro day. I was announcing the PIAA state basketball final, so I could not be there. Mike, you were with me at basketball, so we have to defer this one to Frank. Frank, one of the more interesting things is now that these guys are out from under Penn State umbrella a little bit with, dealing with the media. Pro day is kind of one of their first times that they're doing it if they didn't go to the conference. Guys seem a little bit more open. The questions are a little bit different from post game and practices and things like that. Did you notice any of the other guys like being open and a little bit more detailed in some of their experience? And I am referring to Winston, maybe talking about the injury. And did he provide any insight on how the interview process has gone with him specifically with this NFL draft process?
Yeah. I thought that he was very businesslike. I mean, very, very confident and very professional, but pretty businesslike in his answers, and talks very fast. Don't ever try to take notes like with a pen and paper with that guy. But he didn't give a whole lot. I thought what I thought Julian Fleming was pretty good, and I thought Amin Vanover was. And I think it's mostly because we didn't get a chance to talk to, for example, to those two guys very often during the season. Amin Vanover was important because people wanted to know, hey, what was that you tried to get an extra year of eligibility and it didn't come through amazingly. I can't believe the NCAA didn't give him that. What's that like for you? And he was pretty good talking about how he was already preparing for the NFL since the Orange Bowl ended. And he wanted to come back, but he knew that it may not work, and he just was ready to go. And we talked about his mindset, and I thought Julian Fleming was pretty open and pretty comfortable talking about kind of how Penn State still helped him and how it helped him become, even though he didn't do a whole lot statistically, how just being around the room and being around this team. And I thought he was also pretty good about Jim Knowles. People asked him about Jim Knowles, and he basically, we'll just paraphrase, said he's the man. He's a football genius. Don't try to have a lively conversation with him because it probably is not going to work, but you give him a chance, he's going to actually know what you're doing on offense probably before you do it. So it's a good little tidbit.
Was there, speaking of Fleming, was there any, I don't want to say like regret, retrospect is the word I'm looking for. Was there any retrospect on him maybe being disappointed in how the last season went? Because from the fan base point of view, what started out as Julian Fleming is going to be this key. It's going to be the savior at wide receiver. He's coming from Ohio State. And then we had hints early on about guys talking about, well, this is what he's contributing in the room. And those conversations started after week 2. James kind of went on it all year long. And listen, where Penn State got to, without the catches on 4th down out at USC, they probably isn't in their position. So what was that retrospective from him reflecting back on the season?
He really didn't. I was thinking about what you're saying the whole time he's up there talking with a very large crowd of reporters around him, but he didn't, I'll say, really didn't go there. He would not really touch or elaborate on that. Now, he did bring up the USC catches and how, you got to take advantage of your moments. And he did mention how, and this would resonate with fans, his struggles. Like, he did mention how even leading up to that game, he had dropped some balls in practice, which he said he never usually does. And, I don't know if you remember, he dropped the ball early in that game.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And he then, so after a bye, the next game was Wisconsin, and he dropped the ball at the beginning. That might have been a touchdown. And I'm not sure how many times Drew Aller threw him a pass the entire rest of the season. Mm-hmm. But he did bring up the USC and how important that was for him to be able to be prepared for the moment, despite some struggles, and make the big play. I'd love to sit down and talk to him one-on-one for about a half an hour to get more out of, I want to know about the struggles. I want to know about why, the how, but he just seems comfortable with his life right now, the way he's talking. Like, football works out, great going forward, but he seems pretty content with what he did, how he did it, and so.
He is an interesting case to me because, and this is going to sound like I'm really ripping him, and I don't mean, I'm just trying to sort of analyze it. For a guy, I think it's pretty obvious now that he's limited athletically in terms of being an elite wide receiver. I think he was an early bloomer or whatever it was, but it's unusual for a guy who was as high level a recruit as he was. I mean, we're talking about top 5 in the country, regardless of position, maybe top 3 in the country, regardless of position, to to turn out to be this ordinary of physical talent. You know what I mean?
So you're saying he's one of the most unathletic 5-star recruits you've ever seen before?
Especially given the standards of the wide receiver position, yeah, I would say.
And he went to the place that recruits wide receivers better than any program in the country. They wanted him.
Everybody wanted him, and obviously James really wanted him, not least because he was from Pennsylvania. But anyway, he does seem like a real mature guy now because of his journey and what he's been through, and the fact that it hasn't been a dazzling career for him, but it's kind of been an interesting road, I think, and I think that's reflected in how he talks and how he just his manner, just how he seems.
So as guys kind of portrayed themselves and helped themselves at Penn State's Pro Day, there's topics out there. Did Abdul Carter, did Tyler Warren, did they hurt themselves by not doing anything at Pro Day? One of the concerns for me is Abdul Carter. It's out there that he's dealing with the injury, and obviously he has the right agent to sell him, and that the injury is not going to matter. I go back to the Willis McGahee injury with Drew Rosenhaus saying, he's going to be the first running back taken no matter what happened in that Fiesta Bowl where the knee went the wrong direction. We'll just say that. So my question is, did they hurt themselves? Is Abdul Carter's draft, he's still going to be top 5, but is he out of the running in number 1, number 2 because of not being able to perform and there being a question mark there?
Well, I think he's unlikely to be number 1 because I think the NFL consensus is a little bit higher than it was maybe a month ago on Cam Ward. So therefore, Tennessee is maybe more likely to take a quarterback. And so so Tennessee's picking first. So I think it's less likely that he's going to be number 1. But I don't think the injuries are seen as a long-term thing. So I don't think the injuries hurt him much at all. I tried to interview him on Saturday, and it was not a revealing process after he showed up 3 hours late for a card show appearance in Ephrata in Lancaster County. So I'm not the president of the Abdul Carter fan club right now, but I don't think he hurt himself. He maybe hurt himself in the eyes of the members of the Ephrata Lions Club. I don't think he hurt himself in the eyes of the 32 people who run NFL teams.
No, and I'll tell you this. I don't think he hurt himself either, and I think you're right in that I'm really eyeing him up as a number 2 pick. Will Cleveland, if they stay number 2, will they take him? Okay, so you could overhear on last Friday Drew Rosenhaus talking to Abdul and his parents. You couldn't really hear the entire conversation, but they were talking about how, their dinner, they had met with the Cleveland Browns the night before in State College at the tavern, talking about the future, right? And that Drew was like going over stuff with his parents concerning Cleveland and why they would, it sounded to me like why they want him so badly, to team him up potentially with Myles Garrett, and all of a sudden a good defense becomes a very unique, special one, right? And I think that seems like that just stuck with me as Cleveland number 2, and that's where. So I don't think he could do. I guess the point is this: I'm not sure what if as long as NFL teams know that his injury situation is fine, and I don't have any reason to think it's not, then I don't know what he could have did. Now I think Tyler Warren, everybody says he could not gain really anything, and I guess I just don't quite understand, because I'm thinking, if he would come out and run a really good 40, for example, here's a guy with his size that has proven so much, but maybe has not proven the top 10 overall pick NFL speed for that position or straight line. I mean, couldn't he have helped himself? I just wonder, but he's not working out, and I guess it's okay.
One of the things I noticed with Warren is that I was surprised how high some of these draft analysts are on his potential status. I mean, they are saying he's going to be a top 10, which was a little bit of a surprise. I mean, I'm not saying they're wrong, but that was a little bit of a surprise to me. So maybe he thinks he's playing with house money a little bit as far as the draft is concerned. And I also noticed that his measurables from the combine, he was 6'5.5", 255 or something like that. I mean, a lot of guys' heights and weights are a little bit blown up by the team they're on and all that. That was not really the case with him. He's I mean, I'm sure he's going to be the first tight end, and it's almost a positional thing where it just depends on how early the first team comes up in the draft order that prioritizes a tight end.
Talking about draft, and we're going to talk running backs here in a little bit. I think Penn State's going to have 2 running backs drafted next year, and I think whoever K-Tron, I think he's going to be a later round pick because of the measurables with the speed. I don't think are quite going to be eye-popping for him, but I think whoever gets K-Allen next year coming out is going to get a steal because of his vision and what he's going to be able to produce. Mike, you were up at practice on Tuesday. What are some of the things that jumped off the page to you about where this Penn State football team is right now this spring? One thing that jumped off the page is on video I saw Arrington is wearing number 11, as if that wasn't going to happen. So that was one thing that jumped off just as a number. But what is also jumped off to you and actually things that matter?
A couple things that I just thought were really interesting. Well, one sort of bit of news is that Denai Dennis Sutton and Nolan Rucci, both of whom should figure very prominently in the fall, were not there. And Franklin said they're not available. So I assume that there's some kind of injury, physical problem going on with those two guys. So as a result, Rucci is a right tackle. Javon Williams, the kid from Wyomissing, is sort of right now the first team. Not that it matters who's on the first team in April, but he's sort of the first team right tackle, and this is a guy who's very, very talented. He's a great athlete, kind of played around here, so I got to see him, familiar with him, and so he's maybe getting a little traction. And then, they were going to have to find an edge rusher anyway, but now there's an open casting call with Denai Dennis Sutton out of the lineup, who's really going to be one of their best players. And there's no reason to believe that these injuries are serious long-term things, but that's another thing. And then the other thing is Jim Knowles is unbelievably hands-off at practice. He just kind of stands in the middle of the field and observes, very thoughtful looking, and it's very unusual. He's not he's not hands-on at all, and to the point where Franklin was asked about it, and he said, that's how he is. He's even in our meetings, he kind of sits there and lets everybody talk, and he's just soaking it in. But Franklin said, this is a guy who really, really knows what he wants and knows what he's looking for. But it was just interesting to watch, like Dan Connor's super hands-on and high energy with the linebackers, and Dion Barnes is an active guy with the D line, and Knowles is really just kind of standing off by himself in the middle of the field, very almost stoic, and he's sort of soaking everything in.
I don't get this. This is the highest paid assistant coach in the history of college football. He's got to give it more.
Go, big guy. Get on that soapbox.
He's another one of these a little bit unusual, odd football geniuses, right? We had to experience that so-called with Yursich and the polar opposite
Whoa.
coach.
Whoa.
Andrew Kalista asked for a full timeout.
Oh, I got to wrap on disclosure. I don't think Frank is putting any skill on the comparison level with Yursich and Jim Knowles at this moment. So that was
remember when Mike Yursich was hired, what people were saying about him and what people liked. And then we thought, this guy, to interview that guy was not necessarily fun stuff. And I loved when Julian Fleming says, well, you can't really have a really good conversation with Jim, but man, he knows the stuff. So
yeah, it's unusual to see. I mean, the contrast to the offensive coordinator,
right, unbelievable,
who's out there practically running the drills himself.
I know what I said when Yursich was hired, and since I'm wrong and have been called out on it, I just want to point I was right on that one, as anybody around me on the field and press box would testify to. We're going to talk, Frank, I want to get your opinion on the running backs. I made that statement a while ago or a little bit ago on the show about the draft, both guys being drafted. It's been a while since that's happened. In fact, I can't remember the last time that Penn State had two running backs drafted in the same year. It would be going back to, we're going to hear from DJ Dozier in a little bit when he played. What are your thoughts on how Andy Kotelnicki is going to use these two running backs after 1 year with them? Any expansion in usage? Both guys on the field a little bit more. How do you see this going?
Yeah, I mean, you would think. I mean, we did see some of them times on the field at the same time last year. I think you might expand that situation. And, it's kind of like the offensive line. For it seems like 3 years now, we've talked about the pass catching abilities of both of these running backs. And I think they did more. And I think you can really see Nick, how he's progressed from the beginning of his career to now as a pass catcher. I mean, he made a brilliant touchdown catch in that Wisconsin game. And he never would have done that 2 years ago. Never, ever would have thought about it. I still think there's more to get from the pass game from those two guys. And I think you just might see maybe there's some more creativity in using them both at the same time. But here's the thing to me. Can they both stay healthy? That's really what this is about, because they're both elite talents that you normally never get back for a senior year together. We already know this. Can they both stay healthy? Because they struggled with some of that last year. And I think we didn't get to see the real Nick Singleton till the end of the year. So if we get to see the real, for example, Nick Singleton early on and stay that way, I think that takes care of itself.
I would just add one little cautionary thing here. They have nine running backs that are on scholarship or at least in the picture. And the transfer portal opens in like a week and a half. And a couple of those guys have played a little bit and shown some things and were pretty highly regarded recruits. And I just think this is one position group where the fact that transfer portal is there looms a little bit. I'm not predicting anybody's leaving, but I just think it's something to think about and watch.
Oh, you think somebody's got to leave, like a more promising, bigger name backup. One of those guys.
Wallace and Smith and Martin.
Yes. Right? Yeah, I'd be surprised if we get to May and those three are still all there. That's just my thought. I don't think it almost doesn't make sense for them to all be there. It almost does not make sense for them to all be there.
Yeah.
Because if you don't go now, those guys can't go till December if you don't go now. So if you're healthy and you want a shot to play, Penn State's going to use 3 running backs, but unless somebody gets hurt, they're not going to be given any more than that, any substantial carries this year. I mean, that's it. So,
there you have it.
Who do you got? Who do you got going, Andrew?
Awesome. It's awesome. Right now we got DJ Dozier going, so that's how that's going to roll into here. So cool. Second running backs here on the BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast, and we bring a national championship running back here into the fold. Joining the podcast, legendary Penn State running back DJ Dozier. DJ, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here today with you all.
Gotta ask, what are you up right now in the world outside of football?
So outside of football, one of the companies that I'm helping right now is actually utilizing technology to help athletes. So definitely enjoying that. Of course, some of the old guys, and I talk about how, the comparison of having the technology that these guys have today versus what we didn't have. But we enjoy helping where we can, and whether it's in terms of performance or recovery, or even something in the back office for the administration.
Before these guys start throwing questions at you, I just want to point out, Trey Bauer listens to the podcast. Trey, that was DJ that said old guys, and it wasn't me. So when Trey sees me, I don't want my head ripped off. It was DJ that said that. Not you, Trey. Mike, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Trey's one of the greats. So I know he's back in State College, so often look forward to seeing him when we come up for games.
DJ, what we've been talking about right before you came on is Pro Day and some Penn State players that really didn't do anything at Pro Day or at the Combine. It doesn't hurt their status and that kind of thing. Talk about your experience in that way when you were transitioning to the NFL and your interaction with the teams, workouts. Tell us about that, how that process went for you a little bit.
Well, if you like stories, I got a story for you.
We like
stories. What's interesting for our year, 1986 or 86 season, 87, when we came out, is that we had over a dozen guys that were eligible for the draft. And so what was happening, and Joe Paterno, of course, recognized what was going on. We would have scouts down at the facility every day. And, so guys would come down every day, every other day. And so here's what's interesting. And most people aren't going to realize this. Paterno was the guy, in my opinion, that started this whole pro day at different campuses, because what he suggested to the pros and to the scouts is that, hey, instead of you guys coming down and having our kids go back and forth and, spend time with you and then spend time with the Falcons and the Raiders and the Cowboys, why don't we have one day where everybody comes in and all of our kids come in and you test them however you want to test them. And so that's what happened. And so that one day we did everything. We did, the 40, of course, a bunch of drills, and spent probably about an hour in Hula Hall. And that was, I think that's what started this whole, hey, we're going to have a pro day next year. We're going to have a pro day, at this university. But what that did for us is really, it was one and done, rather than, now I did end up running for the Raiders and I think one other team prior to that setup. And the Raiders at the time were one of the teams that was good. They said, listen, we're definitely going to draft a Penn State running back. And so then, of course, end up drafting Steve Smith. But the point is, setting up that or having that arrangement was great for all of us. And I think it was great for the scouts too, because they got a chance to see everybody at the same time.
Joe invented Pro Day. All right.
There you go.
Hey, DJ, you won a national title. Okay. So a couple of things beyond just the pure talent that you still feel helped you guys win the title. And I'm asking you this because the current team was pretty close last year.
Right.
They got to the Final Four, but couldn't get to the title game, couldn't make maybe the plays in the end. Is there something that fans may not maybe understand or realize that you think's that ingredient that helped get you the final steps?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a couple of ingredients, maybe one key ingredient. One of the things that certainly most people today won't realize is that team, that 86 team, also in 85 went undefeated, right? And then we lost in the championship, or lost to Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl, which ended up being the national championship. 2 years before that, my freshman year, so that was in 83, was the worst start of a Paterno team in his history at that time. So we went 0-3. And so now we turned the season around and end up going, I think it was 7 or 8, 4-1, something like that. But turned that season around. The next year we went 6-5. So that was the worst record at the time for a fraternal team. So 2 years in a row, we have some major hurdles. And at the end of that second season going 6-5, that was a pivotal point for that team, because most of the players on the field were young guys, freshmen, sophomore, a couple juniors. And so we had a chance at the end of that season to go to the Aloha Bowl for the second time in a row. And here's what happened. So in the meeting room, when Fraternal asked if we wanted to go to Aloha Bowl, we pretty much unanimously decided as a team that not only were we not interested in going to Aloha Bowl, but the only bowl game that we were going to play in after that was if it was for the national championship. And so that level of commitment does a lot for any organization. And so for us, I think that brought us together as a team. We had one goal, and as lofty as it was, that common bond, I think, really built a team that was not only close but had a common goal. I mean, every team wants to win the championship, but there was something extra that team had, and I don't know if I can pinpoint it, but attitude certainly, and having a single goal. That was and obviously in '85 we went undefeated and played in the championship and lost. In the locker room, the seniors that could leave and go to the pros decided to come back for a fifth year, a lot of them. And, they basically said, we want to put ourselves back in this same position and not just play, but win. And so that team, had a high level of commitment to each other and accountability. I think, maybe that's maybe a big part of why we crossed the threshold and got the championship in '86, '87.
DJ, to win a national championship, you got to be able to run the football. Penn State's offensive line coming back seems to be pretty high caliber with what they did last season. They obviously have high caliber backs, and going off of what you just said, they've made the commitment to come back when in this day and age, it might not necessarily be the option to go pro right away, but portal out, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton coming back. So to see them come back, what do you see from them, and how do you see them taking the next step to carry Penn State over the threshold possibly next season?
Well, the beauty. Am I still on?
Oh, you're on. You're
okay. The beauty of that level of talent, and it's not just talent. Talent and experience creates a heck of a potential result here. So, with that level of talent and experience coming back, you can only expect, of course, we want to make sure these guys stay healthy, but you can only expect great things. That's what our teams had. After that sophomore year in '84 and then '85, '86, we had a bunch of guys that were talented, but also experienced. And that combination produces, has a great result. So obviously that's what we expect. And I think that they would expect that of themselves as well.
Hey, DJ, is there something you think this current team, from your experience watching them or being around or speaking with them, is there something they have to prove to you as a former Penn State football player, since you understand all this, to be just what you said, to go to the national championship game and win it? Is there something that maybe, I don't want to say missing, but something they have to prove to you, this team currently?
Definitely wouldn't use the word prove, but, really it would be great to see them cross that threshold. And let's face it, it's tough to do that today because, especially if I compare it to our team, I mean, we only had a couple of guys that left or transferred back in that day. And so, when you've got key players that are leaving or, moving on to another team, I mean, that disrupts some of the chemistry and continuity. And so, it's a major challenge. That's a major challenge. So to have a great team, with all of those moving parts is something special. I hope that they can get to a point where, especially this year coming, that they have a chance to not just play for a championship, but cross the threshold and win.
DJ, I don't know if you've interacted much with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, but if you have, what are your impressions of them as sort of as people, and then also just what do you as a fellow running back? What do you think of those two guys as running backs?
Yeah, no, I haven't had a chance to speak to either one of them to this date. I look forward to that. So hard to give you opinion there, but obviously you hear a lot of positive things about them. You don't get to this level without being not just talented, but also extremely competitive. And you can tell both of them are extremely competitive. And you love to see that. You love to see that emotion on a field, after a great play, after a play that, maybe you thought should have gone another way. That lets you know these guys are dialed in. They're out there. They have a purpose and a plan to win. I mean, of course, everyone wants to win. But you've got to have that extra special attitude to take it to the next level in order to win that championship. I think these guys have that.
DJ, I want to put you on the spot here a little bit, and I want you to praise yourself. I don't think some of the younger Penn State fans know what type of athlete you were. So in terms of the pantheon of Penn State athletes, where do you rank yourself? Because I don't know of many guys that have been an All-American and then also played in Major League Baseball. First round NFL draft choice, All-American on football field, and then being drafted in Major League Baseball, playing for the Mets.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Most folks may not remember the name of George Alpert, but when I first met George my freshman year, he had already played for the Cleveland Indians and was now one of the receivers for Penn State. But any player, any athlete that plays multiple sports or has played multiple sports at a high level, colleges, of course, I love to see it, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for them. And I think even like OJ McDuffie played baseball. I think he played at Penn State. I'm not sure. I had heard that. Greg Truitt, one of my teammates and roommates, he actually played a year of baseball, or part of a season. So there's a lot of great athletes. For me, I was just, if I told you the whole story, it's just a great story of how I got back to baseball, because I was actually supposed to play baseball at Penn State. The deal with Paterno was I could play baseball after my freshman year and then in a spring, so a full year of football, and then I could play after my sophomore year of football. I could play baseball, so that was the deal. But as it turned out, I ended up getting arthroscopic surgery after my sophomore year. So I didn't play baseball in the off season. And then after my junior year, you're that close to potentially getting drafted in the NFL. So I decided just not to play baseball. So for me, for being able to play baseball was really a gift. I mean, it was just an unbelievable gift. And, you not that I'm trying to sell my book, but, my book tells part of the story. But it's a tremendous story of me getting back to a game that I loved. And, I had the chance to go to the highest level. I got my cup of coffee. I expected it to be longer, but, the chips didn't fall that way. And I'm thankful that I had the time. In terms of ranking, I mean, I have to put myself somewhere at the top. And it's not like we can go head to head to see who was the best athlete, but I'm just thankful. Number one, God gave me the ability to do different things athletically, and I had an opportunity to display it a bit.
So DJ, I really don't know much about this. You were completely away from baseball for, it had to be 3, 4, 5 years, and then made it to the big leagues. So that's what happened, right?
Actually, it was almost 7 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because the last time I played was in high school, so I spent, obviously 4 years at Penn State, and then then a couple of years in the pros, in the NFL before I started. So in '89, I actually tried out with the Mets.
Okay.
But the way that even happened was because when I got drafted by the Vikings in '87, if you look back in history, that's also the same year that the Minnesota Twins were playing the St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series.
Yeah.
So I went to 3 or 4 of those games. And so while I'm sitting there watching, I think the second or third home game, it just hit me, just this wave of enthusiasm and just, I guess, the idea of not really the idea of playing, just how much love I had for the game. And so it was 2 years after that little seed grew large enough where I had to do something about it, and called my agent and said, "Hey, I want to try out for baseball." And he went silent on me for about 10 seconds. And then, of course, he said, "Okay, here's what we'll do." And so we made a few phone calls, and, long story short, you guys, if you love baseball, you remember the name Joe McIlvaney. So Joe Mack was the scout that scouted me when I was in high school. At that time, he was the head of the minor leagues for the Mets. And so when he heard that I was looking for a tryout, he jumped on it and said, "Hey, I still got the scouting report on this guy. We'll definitely give him a tryout." And that's how I ended up with the Mets.
DJ, what do you get this see games in Beaver Stadium? How closely do you follow the team?
Most people don't. Here's a trivia question for you. Where were my kids born? All of them born in State College. Wow. So State College is like their, home, and so they don't know anything else than blue and white. So yeah, we try to get back at least 2 or 3 times a year, depending on schedules. My kids are older now, so they don't have those Saturday sports schedules like they did, and we've got one left in the house, and our other kids are graduated, and we've got actually one at Penn State now.
Yeah, because almost 40 years since you guys did what you did, they have not been back to the national championship game since. So this was in some ways the closest. What do you think it means to guys like yourself who played and did what you did for the team?
I think it's an announcement of just how special that group of athletes were. We've talked to some of the coaches, and at that time, a lot of them say, that was one of the closest teams that they had ever coached. And I believe a lot of it because we went through some valleys before we got to the mountaintop, and we went through it together. And so, I think there's a photo in Bob White's office, who was one of our defensive tackles back in that day. And he works at Penn State, but in his office, he's got a photo of him and the 3 other down linemen holding hands before the other team comes out of the huddle. And that's just a great symbol of what that team was all about. So, the first thing I think about is just it was a special time, special group of individuals, and we were just fortunate enough to play at our best and win a couple of undefeated seasons, and of course, one national championship.
DJ, we're gonna have you. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I got just a quick one. There was a big valley in the history of the program 12, 13, 14 years ago. I just wonder what you think of how Penn State has recovered from that. And it's been sort of the James Franklin era. What do you think of the job that Franklin has done getting it from there to where they are now?
Oh, yeah. Post the issues, you got Bill O'Brien and, of course, Franklin. This is number one. This is not an easy place to coach, especially post-Paterno. It didn't matter who was coming in. You're going to be scrutinized. And I think both coaches have done an outstanding job. You know, the be able to recruit and then coach kids up to have great seasons is no easy task. And to be able to do that year in, year out, you know, speaks of, you know, just a certain level of commitment and ability. So, you know, you have to give kudos where they belong. And of course, everybody that bleeds blue and white, we won a championship, you know, but, you know, having great teams or at least good records is it's not, you know, not that we're satisfied, but you got to give some sort of applause for that kind of effort, especially early on after, you know, after Penn State went through all the issues we had to go through.
Okay.
DJ, we're going to have you back on before the start of the season, so I'm already committing you to at least one more appearance here on the BlueWhite Tailgate. That's it. Talk about what it takes to go through a national championship grind. But I'd have to ask you, was it more nerve-wracking taking the field knowing before your game-winning score in the Fiesta Bowl, knowing that you guys most likely had to punch one in there for 7, or more nerve-wracking watching from the sideline the defense keep Miami out of the end zone?
Yeah, no doubt that it's more nerve-wracking to not be on the field. When you're on the field, I mean, that's you know, that's where you want to be. When you have that competitive nature, you want to be on the field. And I couldn't stand being off the field. But, you know, I have to say, before scoring that touchdown, you know, here's a nice little another background story. So what most people don't know is that was not any normal play called. So when we were on a 6-yard line and I heard the play come in the huddle, I started smiling because I knew that Miami would have no idea what was about to happen. And the reason I'm saying that is because so that play, it wasn't a real special play, other than it was a 46 slant that gave me the option to go outside or inside. You know, we didn't have plays like that back then. But more than that, it was the formation that we were going to shift into. So it was going to be a spread offense. And of course, you know how conservative Paterno was. So for us to go in a spread offense and a shift into a spread offense was going to shake up some things. And so I remember, again, the play comes in the huddle. I start smiling, and so when Cyberlane and whoever else, when they shifted out, you could, you know, you go back and watch that play. The middle linebacker and one of the outside linebackers they're looking back and forth, not knowing where to go. And of course, by that point, I get the ball, see the hole open up the middle, and you know, almost pretty much walked in.
Nice.
But that was a Paterno call, by the way. He picked that play.
Wow.
Great stuff, Mr. DJ Dozier. Make sure you pick up his book, Decide to Dominate. Read that. It's great insight all across career advice. DJ, I want to thank you very much for being here on the BlueWhite Tailgate Podcast. And as soon as you hang up, I'm going to start booking you for August, September, whatever month works for you during the season. Well, thanks a lot, boss. Really appreciate it.
Sounds good. Enjoyed it. You'll have a great day. Thank you now.
I just love catching up with these, I'll say, more senior Penn State football players as they join the BlueWhite Tailgate Podcast. Looking forward to get DJ back on closer to the season. Transitioning from the offensive side of the ball to the defensive side of the ball, Frank, you had an excellent article on who's going to step up on the defensive line position and who's the next great pass rusher. James Franklin has been able to turn him out. Deion Barnes is the great carrying on what's been done before him. Where do they go? We've mentioned in the show, it's kind of a free-for-all right now with injury, and it's an open season right there to see who steps up. Frank, you talked about Max Granville, and that featured prominently in the article. I encourage everybody to check out on ydr.com. So how do you see this happening?
Well, I mean, this is the first time in a while that they've not, and this is almost strange to say, they've not had two proven elite defensive end starters coming back.
Yeah.
Because they've had that for, it seems like the most of the last 10 years almost. But anyways.
And depth at that position, too.
Right. And they still have depth. It's just so much of it is young or unproven. And so they need, I think, two guys to really step up out of this group that includes redshirt freshmen that have talent like Max Granville, includes a transfer who's older like Anai White, and then it includes a senior who everybody has heard about, but he's never stayed healthy long enough, it seems, to play a whole year, Zariah Fisher. So can at least two of those guys, this group of like 6 guys, can 2 of them step up to be at least reliable starter materials? And I start with Max Granville because to me, he has the most talent that we know of, ability to be the next type of potentially Abdul Carter, Denai Dennis Sutton, Chop Robinson, on and on, Micah Parsons, who, Adafe Owe. I mean, that's like 5 guys that they've had. 4 or 5 guys. Well, Abdul will be 5, I think, chosen in the first round of the draft in the last 5 years. Who else has done that at edge rusher? I guess maybe there's somebody, but that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you're right. Granville is, people might remember this, Granville reclassified after there was sort of a roster spot opened up, as they say, and Granville reclassified. So he really should have been a senior in high school last year, and he was getting on the field. He's apparently a big talent, but he's still a very young player. I think they have some work to do in terms of development at that position. And as Frank said, it's been a while since they didn't have multiple elite options at defensive end.
I think it's good, though. I mean, I think you got to get the young guys. I mean, somebody's going to be young at some point and develop into a star, because we just mentioned the other 5 guys and they did that. So I think it's just finally time for them to kind of start at the bottom. And, don't forget about a guy like Jalen Harvey, who looked really good. He just got hurt almost immediately after he came into the games last year, and we didn't get to see him. But they have more than Max Granville. And, here's the thing. There's so many spots on this team in spring practice that we have one really great proven player coming back, but a spot next to him they need to fill. I mean, that's defensive end. That's defensive tackle. That's a linebacker. I mean, where they have proven commodities, but we're going to try to use the spring to see who can take the lead with that other spot. So to me, that's the intriguing part of the next few weeks here.
I want to get your guys' thoughts as we transition away from football. Overall, the athletic department right now. The hockey team, Frank, you have an article on the hockey team, and we've talked hockey the last couple of weeks here with Brian Tripp and Rodney Martin, two of the voices for the Penn State hockey program. The hockey team's in the Frozen Four, first time ever. Women's volleyball has a national championship. Wrestling is the class of the entire country as they just continue their dominant success. Football, back in the college football, or in the college football playoff, I should say, humming at a high level. There's been spurts in the past, I think in the mid-2000s, where women's soccer was playing or won a national championship. The men's team was very high level. Wrestling wasn't at what it is, but football was at a high level for a time. So, and a tip of the cap, I'm going to give to Tim Curley, because this was part of Tim Curley's vision in building out this athletic department, getting hockey going and that program finally underway with the help of Terry Pegula. Is this the most successful the athletic department has ever been, at least from a results-oriented standpoint?
Maybe. I mean, I'm not enough of a Penn State historian to give you a clear answer to that, but I think 2 things. Number one, women's volleyball has been good for a long time, but the last few years they have not really been national championship good. And to win that the way they did in that dramatic a fashion, that takes it to another level. And obviously, what hockey is doing is the men's sport. That's I mean, I don't know if they're going to win the Natty, but even getting to the Final Four, I think that takes it to another level. Wrestling is a given, and football got to the Final Four. Remember, you may recall. So they still have some issues. Basketball is still an issue. I mean, if we're talking about spring sports, I mean, baseball's just okay. I mean, some of their other things are just okay. But when you not only have a good, strong program, but you win the national championship, that's a big deal, and it looks impressive right now.
Yeah, I think it all starts with football, and I think it just feels like James Franklin and Pat Kraft, and we always talk about this alignment thing, but I think it truly feels that way. Not just them saying it. It feels like James and football are in a more comfortable position. And it seems like then it's like you almost are now seeing that with these other sports. I mean, ice hockey's been good for quite a while, but not like this. I mean, if you look at how dramatic the victories turnaround for ice hockey is, and how, like Mike mentioned, how dramatic women's volleyball performed in winning it. It's more than just that they're good and winning. It's how they're going about it. And it seems like their breakthroughs are coming here at the same time. And I think it's pretty exciting. And then I just want to add, if Pat Kraft grows a beard, how much does he look like Andy Kotelnicki? I think they're really close. It's really strange. I think that's something we need to investigate. Mike, you're retired. You're on it now.
Oh, I have many more priorities than that, my friend. You're getting a little obsessive with this personal grooming thing, I think, because of Franklin's obsession with your hair.
It's very strange, and I'm not sure how to react the next time it comes up. I'm just going to start complimenting him, I think.
I can't even help you on that regard.
Thank
Cool.
you. Thanks. But you know what? Ice hockey is pretty cool. And let me tell you, because I think they have the best play. Like, they finally have guys, I think, on this team who could be real NHL players. And that, I think, can resonate maybe and help them going forward. When a couple of these guys leave here, they're all of a sudden Penn State ice hockey might have a little bit more of a name. And I think that's going to help them in the future. Real quick.
Snowball effect. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
It's really, if you're a Penn State fan, it is really fun. And if you're a Penn State hater, you hate what is going on right now, because Penn State across the athletic spectrum is humming at all levels. Wanted to get to an email that was sent in a couple weeks ago. We missed it last week. Titled "Curious in PA." One, if you're gonna send an email, put an actual name on it. That's what I'm going to say to this person. Put an actual name on it if you're going to send the email. Week after week, I hear Andrew stomping for a better basketball facility. Go find a park and get better, period. The end. I'm just going to follow up. The April Fool's joke about Penn State getting rid of both basketball program was disrespectful to head coach Mike Rose and also Coach Krieger and everybody associated with the program. What are your thoughts about that? Because apparently people don't like that I'm stomping for a basketball-only facility, but I truly believe that until Penn State builds a basketball-only facility, they're not going to be able to compete just because of the structure within the athletic department and how the Bryce Jordan Center has to operate. They're just not able to maintain success.
Well, it's not an ideal situation with the arena and the basketball facilities. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know what the rest of the Big Ten has in terms of basketball facilities. I don't know, or the rest of the country really in terms of the power conferences. But it can't hurt, and they're throwing a lot of money at a lot of things, and it was supposedly 80% of the revenue sharing money is going to football. Well, as Andrew has so eloquently stated, they could use better facilities in hoops. It's a no-brainer. I mean, and in the context of the money they're spending, that seems like a relatively reasonable amount of money to throw at basketball. Two news things about the basketball program: the big kid who came from Northern Illinois has declared for the NBA draft. That would be something if he declared for the NFL draft, but. Now he's with cautionary saying, giving the option to return. and I don't think he's going to get drafted. So there's a good chance that he will be back at Penn State. But I mean, he is a 7-footer who can do some things, so that's noteworthy. And the other thing is they just hired Taylor Battle to be an assistant, former great Penn State player who has been, I didn't even know this. He's been this is his 4th different job coaching since he quit playing, all in the Big Ten, Northwestern, Ohio State, and before he had been at Penn State for a little while. So anyway, little basketball news.
Yeah, I think Penn State is on the right path with basketball, maybe if they can keep Mike Rhodes, if they can get stability with him being there for the next 5 to 10 years. It seems like I'm thinking they're feeling good, and that's going to help them. But I mean, they do need better facilities, but I think he's already shown, I think through recruiting and such, that they are going to go. They just need a little bit more depth and a little bit better fortune. And I think all of a sudden a year like this year can completely turn around in the numbers categories. So that will help them before they even get a new practice facility. So I guess we're going to just agree with the guy who sent the letter in. I think he's right on.
I talked to Pat Flower.
Come on, Andrew.
I was working for Mike. Now he's working for Mike Rhodes, and he's the director of basketball initiatives. I like that title. Anyway, that's the thing that he, having been around it this year and seen all these other Big Ten teams, depth is the thing that he was most struck with. The fact that these teams can throw athletes at you, and Penn State is not quite there yet in terms of just the numbers of players.
Well, they can't be. I mean, look at football with the offensive line when Phil Troutwine came and Franklin took over. I mean, you can have whatever you want as your starters, but if you have no depth on a unit that needs 5 to 6, 7 guys,
no way around it. Yeah, offensive line.
It's going to take some time. I think just he needs Mike Rhodes. I want to see him have just a little more time, no matter where they're playing. I think he can get it done to the point where people stop making fun of Penn State basketball, and that's the big thing going men's basketball. That's the big thing going forward. Maybe next year, right? Hang in there.
Absolutely, they're close. I agree with Steve Johns. They're close. They're talented. Things go their way. I look for some older transfer portal targets instead of some of the young guys, and looking for more proven players wherever they're coming from, whether that's over Europe, whether that's here in America. That's how I think Penn State basketball gets to it. And I'll just say this for the deniers, and the letter that I'll take this week is, if James Franklin was able to say when he first got to Penn State, these facilities would be last in the SEC, and that was a little bit facetious on that point, and he's been able to build it out, and you're saying, oh, look, the money flowed in and look at the success, then you have to say the same thing for basketball. You can't have it one way on one side and then not the other way on the other side. So build a practice facility. If you build it, they will come. A wise producer had it in a movie one time, albeit in a work. All right, for DJ Dozier, Mike Gross, I'm Andrew Calista, the least important person on this podcast. Thanks for watching this edition of the Blue White Tailgate Podcast. Reach out to us on Gmail, bluewhitetailgatepodcast@gmail.com, or hit these guys up in their work inboxes. That's one for this week. We'll see you next week as we get closer to the Blue White game.